Welcome inside the WCBL studios for episode 3 of the WCBL report. We're already 3 weeks into the season. It seems like it's flying by. I'm your host, Clark Monroe, here with IKS Media, and I'm joined today by my trusty co-host, my right-hand man, my right side of the screen man, I should say, Joe McFarland. Joe, it's been a great week across the league. Father's Day this past weekend, and some big news before the weekend even started. Maybe we'll start there. Joe, what's going on in Regina? I mean, I'm here. I know what's going on, but I'm setting up the story. What's going on in Regina?
Great setup, absolutely. And it's crazy, right? Because we've seen a lot of really close games on the field, and things are starting to kind of figure themselves out a little bit. There's been some really great battles. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, the story of the week has to be what happened on Friday morning when Queen City Sports and Entertainment announced that they've reached a tentative deal to buy the Regina Red Sox. Now, QCSE, there we go. I'll get that acronym down before too long. They're the ones who own the Regina Pats. And big deal because, and they alluded to, and we'll talk a little bit about it in a minute, but there's a real big sense here, Clark, about, hey, this is more about a business deal than it is about, hey, who's ownership or who's got the ticket sales, who's doing it's about that resource sharing to a certain extent, because a lot of organizations out in Saskatchewan are that community owned, not for profit based, and they kind of alluded to it. There's a lot of talk about how they're getting away from that, especially on the Alberta side, and Saskatoon kind of changed the game a little bit. And so to stay competitive, we've got some change in Regina. What's the sentiment that you're feeling in your hometown there?
Yeah, so obviously the first thing that comes to mind was, like you just kind of mentioned, the Saskatoon thing. I think that really sort of cemented how things can look if you go that direction. I think Saskatoon has obviously come out of the gate swinging, and we use in a baseball term there, but they really set the tone. And I think what Sean Semple, who for those who might not know, Sean Semple is he's one of the biggest businessmen in the world. Like, we're not talking about like a local, business guy in Regina. This is a worldwide success in terms of what Brandt Industries does. Brandt is a massive, massive farming industry company. They have machinery, all sorts of stuff. It's a very, very big worldwide company. We're talking billions of dollars here. Now, not that all that is obviously going to get funneled into the Red Sox, but Sean Semple is kind of on a path right now in this city of trying to do something fairly big. And when I say that, I mean something, think of like Edmonton's Ice District, for example. He has that in his mind. I've talked to their family in the past. I kind of have a sense that that's where he's going with this. So as much as this is, I think, a business move, and it's really great for the Red Sox organization, it's going to really help solidify them going forward and set them up. I think this is also a leverage move for Sean, who also just acquired a pretty large facility next door to what he owns is the Brandt Center. He doesn't own it, but the Regina Pats play out of the Brandt Center. He just took over the lease for the building next door, which he's going to turn into a small entertainment venue, a little sport, not a little, it's going to be a big sports bar, a blues festival, kind of House of Blues type of venue. So he now has that. He has the main tenant of the Brandt Center, the hockey rink next door. Mosaic Stadium's next door to that. And then Mosaic Stadium, home to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The old Mosaic Stadium, which is Taylor Field, that is an empty lot. And that was supposed to be, years ago, developed into a housing project and some other stuff that never really happened. That was over a decade ago now. So my guess is this is a leverage move for him to say, if there's an empty spot, let's put a baseball stadium there. Let's reinvigorate that area. Let's do this. Let's do that. And as you can see, Joe, in your article, in the things that you've written, but also in other articles that have been posted, the Red Sox are being very aggressive in trying to be almost the centerpiece of a bit of a downtown revitalization project here in the city. And it's very needed. If you want to, there's a really great piece out by Daryl Davis here in the city. If you want to go look at Daryl Davis, and what he wrote. I won't say what he said. There's some negative things in there, which is okay. It's criticism, but I'll let you go see what he says. But it's a pretty accurate article. So that's kind of the Regina vibe, is, this could be a part of a much larger movement, I'll say, in Regina and for the future of entertainment in this city. It's not just the Red Sox. It leads to a lot of bigger things. So it's a very interesting move. I think it's, but let's go back to the Red Sox. I think it's a great move for the team. And like you said, you're looking at the Berries, you're looking at the Okotoks Dogs, you're looking at Sylvan Lake as examples of where this league could go and might be going. This is a big move for the Regina Red Sox, Joe.
Yeah, and I mean the other piece to all this is being able to share some of the resources too. You see it in Saskatoon, you see it in other markets too, where now it becomes a year-long thing. You've got paid employees who are working on. We'll use the Pats and Red Sox as an example. Now you've got social media teams as an example who can do that kind of stuff, or the merchandising side. It's not just. I'll use this example is over the off season, I reached out for Saskatchewan dugout stories to see if we could get some ad space in the Regina Red Sox programs. Who's one that reaches back out to me? It's Gary Brotzel, right? It's a one man show. He's got multiple hats on. Same with Al Simpson. It's a very small group. Now you're expanding that group and allowing different people to have different says. And Gary and Al are still going to be very much involved, but now you can kind of spread the wealth that you're not burning people out, that kind of thing. And to your point, the other big piece in all of this too is that downtown revitalization piece, right? There has been a lot of talk about a replacement for Curry Field at some point, and I know that there's been talk about, hey, is the brand setter past its expiry date? If Sean Semple and company want to go to city council and say, hey, we've got an idea, it's probably better to have one voice going to council saying, here's our vision for the area, versus 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 people saying, here's what we think it should be, and trying to piecemeal it all together. So this is going to be probably, I think this is a win-win-win for everybody involved, and especially for the city of Regina, as they want to really make that downtown core pop.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting see how this all goes down in the future. It's going to be an exciting couple of years for sure here in the city. But why don't we just let Gary Brotzel, who was involved in this press conference, Sean Semple, Al Simpson, and who else? There was one other one. Let's let them do the talking, Joe. Let's have a quick look at their press conference from Friday, and we can see what they have to say.
I want to first of all start by thanking you all to be here today to this proud and historic day in our Queen City. This is it's with great excitement that I want to also announce and confirm that the Queen City Sports and Entertainment have purchased the Regina Red Sox.
Long term, things had to change. A transition had to happen. New ownership model had to come about, and that wasn't, I would say, inevitable. It was absolutely essential to secure the future of the Red Sox as a representative in the Western Canadian Baseball League. So I'm hopeful that we're able to preserve the proud traditions of this club. I'm hopeful that we usher in a new era of growth and community engagement for 2026 and beyond. And more than anything, I hope that we're good stewards of this storied franchise in Regina.
The WCBL's fast growing. The fan base not 5 years ago was 200,000. Now it's pushing 500,000. You know, it was clear to me that it was time that we moved on to that model as well. I'd like to thank Sean for taking a serious interest in our franchise and the WCBL. I'm confident he understands the history of the franchise in Regina. With that, I'd just like to say welcome aboard.
This is more than a transaction. It's really about the fulfillment of a dream, a unification of two great teams and storied franchises here in Regina, with the Regina Pats and the Red Sox. We believe that in Regina Red Sox and sports, and we believe in Regina. Thank you, and let's play ball.
Go. So there's the news. There's the news from QCSE, Queen City Sports Entertainment, and of course Sean Semple is the head of that organization. For those who might not know the full story behind that, the logo you'll notice is a big stadium, so maybe there's some foreshadowing there. But it has 5 stars above it, and originally there was 5 owners in the Queen City Sports Entertainment Group. That was back in, I think, 2014-15, that area. That's when they bought the Pats. And then over the few years, they got the Memorial Cup here in Regina. They hosted that. I was part of the Pats organization at that time. And then after the Memorial Cup, a year or two after that, the other owners kind of eventually just kind of sold their shares, and now Sean Semple owns and Brandt Industries owns the whole thing. So that's why that's kind of a little backstory there. But what I'm saying is that Sean Semple has big dreams. He has big visions. Nothing he does is small. So when this comes in and you see him talking about the future, and you see Al Simpson saying, this was necessary for the organization, and Gary Brotzel's talking about the crowd sizes and all those kinds of things. Sean Semple doesn't like small. He likes big. Things are going big. He thinks big. So it's exciting for the organization and for people here in this area, Joe. And not just for the Red Sox. It's going to be a grassroots type of investment, I think, in baseball in Regina as a whole. So it's exciting news for everybody. But Joe, let's go back to the other teams. There are 11 other teams in this league, and there's a lot of games over the weekend. So why don't we talk about that? It was kind of a wild weekend. Lots happening.
Just before we get into that,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add two really quick pieces of business on that front. Is the deal is still subject to WCBL Board of Governors vote, which is happening, I believe, in the next week or two. So stay tuned to all the socials for all the details on that. And of course, we'll update that on this program in the weeks ahead as well. The deal doesn't actually take effect until October 1st if it is approved as well. And so a lot of people wondering, oh, is this going to affect the on-field product heading into the next few weeks here? The answer is no. And Gary Brotzel made mention of that, is like, it's business as usual until October 1st. And then, as you mentioned, Gary and Al are going to take on baseball oriented roles within the bigger umbrella organization after October 1st. So that's the here and now as far as what's going on with QCSC, QCSE. There we go. I'll get it straight. I'm a CSC, Calgary Sports and Entertainment Corporation guy. So,
Right.
lots of expertise in that front. I could go on for days about.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go back to the field stuff. And I got to say, when you look at the standings, when you look at the scores, you're starting to see things even out. You're starting to, but it's not even just an evening out as much as it is. You're not seeing. There was a couple of days there where we didn't see double-digit scores, as an example. We didn't see NFL-style scores, for example. Some really classic battles, some 3-0 scores, some 3-2 scores, a 9-8 game mixed in there as well with a couple of walk-offs. It's been a fantastic week of baseball, and Mother Nature has agreed for the most part. There's been a couple of hailstorms that have had to be cleaned off the field in Sylvan Lake and Okotoks particularly, but all in all, a fantastic week so far.
Well, let's have a look at Sunday's games. There was a bit of a football score there in one of the games. Moose Jaw put up 27 runs. Whammy! Yeah.
11 in the first inning.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have to go too deep into that one, because I'm sure Swift Current's still kind of figuring that one out. But Saskatoon beat Weyburn 13-4. This is, of course, on Father's Day here. You mentioned the 3-1 game, Fort Mac 3-1 over Lethbridge. That was a fantastic 4-game series, Joe. Maybe I'll let you talk about that in a sec. Just the 4-game series and how good it was. Okotoks 8-3 over Energy City. Regina got an 11-1 win over Medicine Hat. That was a day after I think they had a 12-2 win over Medicine Hat on Saturday. And then the Sylvan Lake Gulls 9-7 against Brooks there. And then last night, there was no games on Monday, but last night, this was a great day. A lot of really good games here. Saskatoon 8-6, and I think it was 6-6 in the 8th inning, if I'm not mistaken. So a late win there for Saskatoon at home. They still have not lost at home, which I think is very impressive. Energy City, a 7-2 win over Weyburn in Weyburn. Medicine Hat with a 6-3 win at home against Brooks. Moose Jaw, again, a much closer game this time, but it was a 5-2 win over Swift Current. And then, like you mentioned, that great 9-8 win for Okotoks over Fort Mac. Do you want to touch on that Fort Mac Lethbridge series a little bit, Joe? Because I know that was a great 4-game series up in Fort Mac.
Yeah, it really was. And a kind of a pitcher's duel, right? When you think about the 3-1 score, there was a 3-0 game, which is kind of foreshadowing to something that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the program as well. But it's unfortunate for the Fort McMurray Giants, because they go into Okotoks last night and lose 9-8. And they're in 5th place in the West Division right now. We'll get into the standings in a second, but they've been kind of the unfortunate losers in this situation, because they could very easily be a 500 baseball team right now, given the results, right? And it's just the way the baseball falls sometimes for some of these teams. And Fort Mac's come to play. I mean, we kind of expected that heading into the year. We knew what Ray Brown brings to the table as a head coach. You're going to be facing a team that's going to do baseball the old-fashioned way, and they are pecking away at teams and making life really difficult for teams, especially at home. But now that they get to be a road warrior team for a little bit more gelling might go a long way for the Fort McMurray Giants.
Well, let's have a look at those standings, and you can talk a little bit about the West maybe to start it off, because it's still pretty close all the way through. There's a bit of separation now, though, between the top and bottom three. And then in the East, it's kind of figuring itself out as well. Do you want to just maybe start with the West there, Joe?
Yeah, and Okotoks is clearly jumping ahead of everybody right at the moment, but could very easily get back into the middle of that mix between Lethbridge and Sylvan Lake. Lethbridge is having a gangbusters kind of year already. They've knocked off Sylvan Lake a few times this year, which has brought Sylvan Lake back down to earth a little bit. So that's really a wrestling match. And Energy City's right in the middle of the mix too, right? Like as much as they're a flip of the record with Sylvan Lake, they could very well be in that 9-6 spot as well. They're losing some really close games too, so it's still very much up in the air. And again, Brooks last night go up against, I think it was Medicine Hat. They lose 6-3. It was 6-1 going into the ninth. They scored a couple of late inning runs, but they're not making life easy for anybody that they're facing either. So it's still like 5.5 games isn't very much when you think about it, especially when you compare that to the East, where 5.5 games gets you where Moose Jaw is right now. And that's, again, a very Saskatoon's just off to the start of the season. I think we all kind of expected, given the offseason acquisitions and that kind of stuff. Medicine Hat's been brought back down to earth ever so slightly. They've had a couple of big losses to Regina, as you mentioned. Moose Jaw, a couple of big wins against Swift Current, which helped them propel. Weyburn just kind of, they can't seem to catch a break. They lost a close one last night again to Energy City, and Swift is still trying to figure things out. But they keep saying, and knowing Rudy Estrella and company, they really want to get gelled. They might be the one team that don't have a lot of returning guys. They have a lot of international flavor, and it might take them a little time to get their feet under them still. So it's still too early for me to be like, yep, there's a playoff spot guaranteed in either division.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be that way. And tonight, a game that could be fairly big in terms of the playoff positioning race and battles is Moose Jaw and Regina kick off their Highway 1 rivalry this week, or tonight. So it should be a very interesting night in Moose Jaw for that one, because they're neck and neck right now in the standings. So we could see some jostling there. One thing I always love to look at after you look at the standings is the power rankings, because it kind of paints the picture of how the last week or so has been going. And as you can see, there are some movement. There's a lot of movement, not a lot of big movement, but there's a lot of ups and downs in this list, which I think the biggest one is you can see that Sylvan Lake is down a couple spots after this week, despite having that second place spot kind of in the West. I know they're tied with Lethbridge right now, but they're down. Medicine Hat's down after they were right up at the top not too long ago. And obviously you see Saskatoon there. They're right up at the top. What stands out for you at the power rankings for Sentinel Storage and Access Storage, Joe?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Sylvan Lake, and that's one of the teams that I look at, and I'm a subscriber to their newsletter, and they even say it's been an up and down kind of year. They'll get a couple of wins, and then they lose 3, and then they win 3, and then so they're still trying to figure things out a little bit in Sylvan Lake, and I have no doubt that they're going to get there. It's just a matter of like getting the right pieces in play at the right time. The other one I mentioned Fort McMurray earlier on is, as much as they're 4-6, they could have very well gone 7-3 this past week, and we'd be talking about them in the top 5. It's just a matter of, they can't seem to catch a break right now. And yeah, as the season progresses, you're going to see a few more of these teams maybe catch a break that maybe they didn't earlier on in the season. And I find that it'll even itself out after a couple more weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there has been some pretty impressive. Actually, you know what, Joe? Before we get into the hitting, the stats and the players, the pitchers and the hitters, it was Father's Day on Sunday, and I meant to mention this during our talk about Sunday's games. But do you have any memories, I want to say, of maybe going to the park with your dad or playing catch with your dad, or any Father's Days, anything stick out for you in terms of Father's Day?
So being a farm kid, we spent a lot of time in the tractor together, and that was always the big thing growing up. Was you had the sports talk radio station in town broadcasting Blue Jays games, and so I grew up with Tom Cheek in my left ear, kind of thing, and that was always the big thing. We were never really near good high level baseball, and during the summertime, you're always kind of married to the farm work and that kind of stuff. So that's what sticks out to me more than anything else. Is yeah, we played catch and all that kind of stuff, but it was always about like just sitting back and listening to the Blue Jays games, or if it's raining out here at home, maybe we'll hop into the house and watch a ball game with dad.
Yeah, for sure.
How about
So
you?
I grew up in Moose Jaw myself, and I don't know if you know the history of Moose Jaw baseball, but back in the 90s, there was a low-level professional baseball team in Moose Jaw
Mhm.
called the Moose Jaw Diamond Dogs. So I remember going to those games with my dad way back in the mid-90s, just as a wee little lad. So that was pretty cool. Obviously, dad driving me and taking me to baseball practices. I have a famous story that my dad loves to tell of me going to a tryout one year when I was like 6, I want to say. And I thought I was late. We weren't late. There was 2 players playing catch on the field, so I thought I was late. I wanted to be the first one out there, and I refused to take part in this tryout in this camp or whatever it was. So I left, and he disciplined me appropriately, let's just say, when we got home. Because that's a funny story that he says, like, I almost didn't play baseball because of that day. He almost took me right out of the sport, but thankfully he let me go back and try again. But I had some great memories, of course, with my dad. So I just wanted to put that out there. Happy Father's Day to all. I know a lot of the
Absolutely.
teams you mentioned, Saskatoon, they did a great video playing catch with their dads and family members and stuff. So lots of great Father's Day stuff. You can go check out the teams. That I know they posted there's some teams just saying dad jokes and all those kinds of things. So go check out the social medias. But let's talk about some more of the players and some of the individual statistics, because that's always fun to talk about. As we can see, the hitting leaders here. Carter Roth continues to just be the Luis Arias, we were calling him last Thursday on the Game of the Week pregame show of the WCBL. He's a singles machine, Joe. But who else stands out for you on this list?
It's always funny to see Austin Gurney's name up on that list because he's always seems to be there, and he's going to be at the top of the home runs list and the RBIs list every year, it seems like. Although it's been fascinating to watch Moose Jaw try to figure out who his partner in crime is going to be, and it seems though William Edwards is taking over that role. Of course, we've over the last few years had Nate Mensick there, and not so much this year. So they've been really fascinating to watch, and doesn't hurt when you do win a ball game by a football score like they did against Swift Current earlier on in the week. The other guy that I always kind of lean towards or wanted to see is with Saskatoon we know Corey Waters has been really an absolute beast down south and winning all kinds of awards. And we knew Carter Beck was coming in, and Ethan Murdoch we knew was going to be on top of lists as well. But Adium Medina is turning into quite the player as well. And so there's been a bit of jostling I've noticed in their batting order as far as who gets to play where and who gets to supplement who. And it's an embarrassment of riches to a certain extent, at least for right now, when it comes to Saskatoon Berries.
Yeah, it's so funny, Joe. Before the show, me and director Steven in the back were saying that Carter Beck, he's such a bum. He's only hitting 400 after he was hitting 500 last week. He's just fallen. He's plummeting down the leaderboard list. And we thought we were joking, obviously. Very good player. Let's have a look at the home run leaders here, because he was on the home run leader list last week. He's not now, Carter Beck. But there are some newcomers onto this list, Joe, if anybody stands out here for you.
Yeah, Wilmer Henriquez in Swift Current obviously jumps right off. I mean, not a big RBI total right off the bat, and he's got about 15 fewer at bats than some of the other guys on that list. So clearly, there's some eyes towards what he might be getting into a groove with and how that'll help that Swift Current 57s team that has struggled out of the gate. Obviously, the other piece to this is the Metasnap Mavericks. As much as they've been known as kind of a scrappy team last year, it's been their power that has really helped them out in the last few weeks here. And so that'll be interesting to see how that evolves over the course of the season as well. Can they keep up that pace with the Tyler Van Estes and Aaron Volcanos and Micah Dvoraks on that list? Or will they start to fall off if they hit a bit of a slump, or if they continue on? So, yeah, I mean, this list is going to continue to ebb and flow for sure. But there's some big numbers out there right out of the gate. We're 3 weeks into the season and guys are already at 5 and 6. Okay, then it's that time of year again.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one interesting thing, just to touch on your point about Medicine Hat, is that Tyler Van Estes has been at 4 now for about a week and a half. Like, they were Medicine Hat. You saw their numbers early offensively were massive, big numbers, double digits every single night. That has come down to earth a little bit over the last few games, not necessarily every game, but the last few games it's been they've scored 1 run the other day, 6 runs, not 12. So maybe we're seeing that balance, like you mentioned, sort of coming around a little bit. But some of the pitchers have also been lighting up the scoreboards, and the guy on top is new to this list from last week, but boy, has he come out hot, Joe.
I mean, look at the strikeout numbers. 2 starts, 19 Ks. I mean, come on, Levi Abbott, and the Vauxhall Academy kid to boot. So he knows the area pretty well. He knows what he's getting himself into. He's getting into the form that he had in 2023, I believe, as well. And so that's good news for Lethbridge Bulls, who had, when I was in Oyen for the Rural Roots Classic, they were talking about their pitching and they said, listen, this is going to be the underrated part of our team this year. We've got some dudes who can toss, and Levi Abbott showing that. The other one that I am always fascinated by is Ian Heck with Weyburn. He's a dual purpose guy. He's the Shohei of the Weyburn Beavers right now. He hits in the middle of the order. And oh yeah, he also slices and dices and is the workhorse on the mound as well for the Beavers, and is off to a phenomenal start as well. I mean, look at those sub-2 ERAs to start the year in a year where offenses reign supreme.
Yeah.
That's some pretty good numbers. Even Adam Cordy in Swift Current, like that's a pretty good 5 starts on a team that has not won a lot of ball games.
Yeah, workhorse Adam Cordy. You can see those innings pitched numbers at 27 already through 5 starts. So he's getting, into the 5th and 6th innings each and every night. And the crazy part about Ian Heck is he has a 1.88 ERA. And if you look at last night's game against Energy City, I'm pretty sure he was responsible for 5 of those runs. So you give up 5 runs, and he still has a sub-2 ERA. That's just how good Ian Heck has been. And like you said, he's also hitting. So he's doing a little bit of everything. But speaking of Levi Abbott, that leads us to the Pile of Bones Brewing Player of the Week. Sorry, the play of the week's coming up. That's wrong. That's me. That's on me. I'm getting confused with all these sponsors. That's great, though. The great news is that we have lots of sponsors to talk about. But the player of the week was Levi Abbott. As you mentioned, Joe, 13 innings pitched, 19 strikeouts. The guy had a great week on the mound, and I'm sure he'll continue to do that. But that leads us into the Pile of Bones Brewing Play of the Week. And this one, this is a great one. First of all, Pile of Bones, one of my favorite breweries in Regina. It's located in Regina. Their white IPA, if you haven't had it, it's a top 3 beer for me of all time. It's fantastic. But let's check out the play now, and we're going to go to Okotoks for this one. It's a pretty impressive jump
on the bases, but that one will get
climbs ladder. It's Eric Matchy. My goodness gracious. And to be fair, this kind of expands beyond our usual 7 days, because this was, I believe, on the Tuesday last week. We didn't catch it until after we recorded the show. But Eric Matchy, an Illinois State University kid, local kid, he helped the Dogs win the 2023 championship as a high schooler and has been very highly touted throughout his baseball journey. And there's a lot of question marks around the middle infield with Okotoks, because Luther's been at the top of the batting order for the last 2 or 3 seasons. He's now graduated. Who's going to take that shortstop role? Who's going to take that middle infield role? Eric Matchy and Brandon Paez are doing their darndest to make sure people at least they're not going to forget Brendan Luther, but they're certainly going to sting a little less, and plays like that make it obvious that they've got the middle infield in good hands in Okotoks.
My knees hurt just watching him jump that high. That's for sure. There have been some guys who have moved on, Joe, that you want to just touch on, some alumni updates. Who's hot right now in the pros?
Yeah, I've got 3 that are top of mind for me right now. We'll start with Eric Sabrowski. We talked about him in week 1. And Eric Sabrowski made his major league debut, former Edmonton Prospects two-way guy, made his debut in major leagues last year and was injured through spring training and is back. He played a couple of games in the Arizona Complex League, made 1 appearance in AA, and he's already in AAA. He's made appearances in Columbus there with the Guardians. So expected delivery in Cleveland sometime soon, I suspect, given that Cleveland is still in the middle of a pretty good run so far to start the season with the Guardians. A couple of others, Okotoks alum Shane Shannon, a draft pick of the Atlanta Braves. He's in Double A Columbus right now at 2-1, 5.19 ERA in 14 appearances. Has been lights out for them. They like having their relievers in Atlanta and like having some guys with some depth, and so that'll be a name to watch as well in the weeks to come. And another guy, nice to see him back. He's from Bigger, Saskatchewan, Vauxhall Academy, and Swift Current 57's alum Garrett Hawkins, fresh off of Tommy John surgery. Finally back. Glad to see him back. And he's absolutely dicing in high A Fort Wayne with the Tin Caps, the San Diego Padres high A affiliate. 4-1, 2.30 in ERA, and 2 saves in 20 appearances. That arm's feeling pretty good so far, Clark.
Yeah, well, you know what they say about Bigger, Saskatchewan, Joe? New York is big, but this is bigger. That's literally their town slogan. Anyways, that's fantastic. Let's look ahead to the week that's coming up here. There's a few big games coming up over the next few days. We start with tonight's games. There's a few big ones. I mentioned one earlier. You see it on the right side of the screen there. Regina is in Moose Jaw. Those guys are neck and neck in the standings in the East Division. So that's a huge game. Obviously, the Highway 1 rivalry kicks off tonight. Sylvan Lake is in Saskatoon again. They played last night. Saskatoon snuck out a win, so Sylvan Lake's going to want some revenge there. Energy City and Weyburn play again tonight. Medicine Hats in Swift Current for a big East Division matchup there. Swift Current needs to find out if they can keep up with these guys. So this is going to be a big game if they can pull out a win there. Elks Field is hosting the Brooks Bombers and Lethbridge Bulls. And then Fort Mac is in Okotoks at Seaman Stadium for another rematch against the Dogs. On Thursday, we see the Regina Red Sox host the Energy City Cactus Rats. I will be at that game for anybody interested in saying hello. The Moose Jaw Miller Express will be down in Swift Current. It seems like these two teams play almost every day. They play a lot against each other. Like their whole schedule is taking place against each other in this week and a half stretch. Fort Mac is in Lethbridge at Spitz Stadium. Okotoks and Brooks face off. Sylvan Lake will be in Weyburn. And you want to touch on this, Joe, because I know that Sylvan Lake is on their Eastern Conference or East Division swing right now. And then Saskatoon will be in Medicine Hat. That game is the WCBL Game of the Week. So we will have tomorrow night a preview show for you, a pregame show, I should say, on our YouTube channel, as well as hopefully, I'm just talking to Medicine Hat's staff right now, getting it on their Flow College broadcast as well before that game begins. And then on Friday, as we head into the weekend, 6 more games. Energy City again in Regina, so the back-to-back games there. Swift and Moose Jaw, like I said, they never don't play each other. It's just those two. Fort Mac and Lethbridge again. Brooks and Okotoks, Sylvan Lake and Weyburn on that swing still, and Saskatoon is still in Medicine Hat. So it's going to be a big few games, a couple of rematches. But Joe, you wanted to touch on something that stands out for you with Sylvan Lake's Eastern road trip.
Yeah, there's a couple actually, and I didn't realize it as well, but the Energy City Cactus Rats are also through their Eastern swing as well. And so it's a good litmus test for not just those two teams as they get to know each other a little bit better. Road trips are always great for that, yeah, on the bus for that long. But it's a good litmus test for Sylvan and Energy City to see how they stack up against potential WCBL championship rivals per se, as they get further on down the season. And on the flip side, it's a good litmus test for the Saskatchewan teams to see how they stack up against their Western rivals as well. So you're starting to see that interdivisional rivalry and matchups start to swing out, and they don't necessarily get to see each other as often as Moose Jaw and Swift Current get to see each other, but they get to see each other a few times, right? And so it's a nice change of pace for some of these teams to see some new barns and that kind of stuff. And so I'm really intrigued to see, especially. I think Ian Wilson had Swift Current Saskatoon and Sylvan Lake meeting up in the championship in the season preview show. There is that a preview? I mean, we saw Saskatoon eke out the 8-6 win. What will happen tonight and beyond? We'll have to wait to find out.
Yeah, it seemed like, I remember at the beginning of the year, Moose Jaw and Weyburn seemed like they were playing a whole lot, and now it's Moose Jaw and Swift. It's just that I don't know who made the schedule, but it seems like they had that in mind. Just get those games out of the way early, and then we'll figure it out later. Joe,
worry about the long distance road trips later.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We'll keep it local, just kick it off, and then we'll go somewhere else later. But Joe, it's going to be a great week. Really excited to see how everything goes down and what big news might come out before next week's show. So I appreciate your time here.
No more big news for a while.
Yeah, well, no, every week we need big news every week. Joe, appreciate it, and we'll chat again in a week's time.
Sounds fantastic. Looking forward to it. Thanks for watching.
All right. For everyone here at IKS and everyone at the WCBL, I appreciate you tuning in for the WCBL report, and we'll see you again next week.
Forever.